Kayla was a spoiled rich girl who didn't care much for anything outside her bubble of privilege. However, after hitting a homeless man with her new car, she learns a lesson about misjudging people. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like and share this video with your friends. It might brighten their day and inspire them to do good. Also keep watching because an important lesson awaits at the end of the video. It was the morning of Kayla's birthday, and she was trying on the expensive, new designer dress her father had bought her for her party later that day. Her father, Mr. Erickson, was a wealthy business tycoon with a thriving floral franchise. Mr. Erickson had always provided the best in all things for his daughter. Even that very morning, he had purchased her a new luxury car. Kayla had always been raised with a silver spoon in her mouth, firstly because he generally loved his daughter, and secondly because she grew up suffering from severe asthma and claustrophobia. Mr. Erickson wanted to make sure his daughter worried for nothing. Happy with how her new dress looked, Kayla made her way to her new car and left for a meet-up with her friends at a gourmet restaurant for the party. While she was ecstatic to take her new car out for a spin, she was upset because her boyfriend, Brandon, was supposed to drive her to the party but never pitched. After multiple tries, she finally reached him on the phone. "Brandon, where are you? This is like the millionth time calling you, and your phone just keeps going straight to voicemail," Kayla barked. "Sorry, babe. Things have been hectic at work. That's why I couldn't pick you up as promised," Brandon explained. "But it's my birthday, Brandon. You didn't even call to wish me happy birthday." Kayla howled in frustration. "I know, I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you at the party," said Brandon. "I hope so." "I'm tired of empty promises," Brandon, Kayla said. "Listen, I have to get to work. We'll talk later," Brandon said, cutting the call abruptly. "Brandon? Brandon?" Kayla yelled, looking at her phone in shock. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as she hit something or someone. Kayla immediately hopped out of the car and checked her bumper, completely ignoring the vagrant lying on the floor beside the car. There was a small dent on the bumper. "My new car," Kayla cried, then turning to the vagrant who held his arm in pain. "You dented my new car, you hobo. You didn't stop at a pedestrian crossing." "It's not my fault," the vagrant said, getting up. "Do you know how much this car costs? And now you've got all your filth all over it," said a frustrated Kayla. "I'm sorry. It wasn't my intention. But I'm okay. It's only a little scratch, just in case you were wondering," the vagrant said, still holding his arm in pain. He leaned against the car, trying to find his balance. "Don't touch my car. The last thing I need is you stealing from me," yelled Kayla. "I'm just trying to get on my feet, ma'am." "That's all," the vagrant said, stepping away from the car, still holding his arm in pain. "Whatever. I don't have time for this," Kayla exclaimed, getting into the car and speeding off. She later pulled up to the posh restaurant where the party would occur. When Kayla got to the venue, she could not believe what awaited her on the other side of the restaurant doors. She walked into an empty restaurant. None of the guests she had invited was anywhere to be seen. The only person that was there was Jane, her best friend. "Where is everyone?" Kayla asked Jane in a panic. "I don't know, Kayla, but I'm sure people will eventually pitch," Jane said, trying to comfort her friend. "My own boyfriend didn't pitch, Jane," Kayla said, breaking into tears as she typed Brandon's number on her phone. She tried to call him, but he wasn't picking up. "I can't believe Brandon is doing this to me," she cried. "Don't worry. Brandon loves you. I'm sure he'll pitch. Let's just give it some time," Jane assured her. And so they did. 2 hours passed, and the place was still empty. Most of Kayla's guests had already called to say they weren't coming, and Brandon was still nowhere to be seen. Then Brandon finally came through the restaurant door. Kayla expected him to at least come with flowers or a gift, but he brought neither, not even an apology. "Brandon, you're 2 hours late," Kayla cried. "I told you work was hectic. At least I made it, eventually," Brandon said. "Whatever," an irritated Kayla said. "I need to find the manager and cancel some of the orders," she said, storming off. An embarrassed Kayla informed the manager that only 2 guests will be pitching. And as if her birthday hadn't gone wrong enough, she saw something heartbreaking the next moment. Her boyfriend Brandon and Jane were kissing while she was away from the table. Kayla pretended she didn't see that and decided to go to the terrace as her eyes began to well. All Kayla wanted to do was get in the lift and burst into tears. But to her surprise and vexation, she sees the raggedy vagrant from earlier standing before her as the elevator doors open. "Ew. No. You again. Are you stalking me?" Kayla yells. "Ack. That smell," she added, holding her nose in disgust as the vagrant stepped onto the elevator. "What a pleasure it is to see you again," the vagrant says sarcastically. The elevator began to move before suddenly stopping between floors. "Oh no. Oh no. No, 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 no," Kayla said, banging her arms against the closed doors and hitting the emergency button in panic. "Help. Calm down. I'm sure we'll be out of here in no time," the vagrant said, trying to comfort her. "Stay away from me," Kayla said to the man, pulling out her phone and trying to call Brandon. Brandon wouldn't pick up. Her heart rate began to increase gradually. She tried Jane, but she also didn't answer. Kayla went into full panic mode as she began to weep with heavy breaths. She called her father, and luckily he picked up. "Dad, please help. I'm stuck in an elevator at the restaurant with some hobo. I think I'm having another asthma attack. Please." Kayla barely finished her sentence when her phone suddenly fell to the ground and broke. She went into a severe asthma attack, struggling with every breath. Kayla suddenly collapsed. Luckily for her, the vagrant caught her before she hit the ground. He performed CPR on an unconscious Kayla for a few minutes before she finally gained consciousness. "Thank you," Kayla said, finally looking the man in the eyes. Until that moment, she had seen him as nothing but a homeless man. And now, in a matter of seconds, that changed. From up close, she even realized how beautiful and enchanting this man's eyes were. "Like I said earlier, it's my pleasure," the homeless man said with a comforting smile. Suddenly, the elevator doors swung open. "Get away from her," a voice said. "Oh, I remember you. I remember you very well, actually. I believe you called me a bum the last time we met." Kayla and the vagrant both looked up to see Kayla's father, Mr. Erickson, entering the lift in a panic as he shooed the vagrant away. "Get away from her, you bum." The vagrant, fearful of any trouble that may proceed, made a run for it. "You don't understand, Dad. That man saved my life," Kayla explained. "Him. I think you may have bumped your head, my girl. He didn't look like he could save anybody, let alone himself," Mr. Erickson said, helping Kayla to her feet and hugging her dearly. "Where's Brandon and Jane?" Kayla asked, suddenly realizing none of them answered her calls. "I don't know. I didn't see them at the restaurant when I got here. They may have left," Mr. Erickson said. "Oh," Kayla simply said, still slightly out of breath as she gazed longingly into the direction the vagrant disappeared. Later that evening, Brandon texted Kayla, telling her he was breaking up with her to be with Jane. Kayla didn't sleep a wink that night, not because of Brandon's and Jane's betrayal, but because of the vagrant who saved her life. The rogue man she had hurt and treated like nothing earlier that day was the only one who was there for her when she needed someone the most. Early the next morning, Kayla set out to find the vagrant and thank him. Her dad saw her as she was about to leave the house and was immediately concerned. "Where are you going?" Mr. Erickson asked as he caught her reaching for the door handle. "I want to find the man that saved me," Kayla explained before beginning to breathe heavily. She was having a small asthma attack. Mr. Erickson immediately brought her an asthma pump, and she calmed down. "Kayla, you had a major episode yesterday, and these are clearly the after effects of that. I can't let you go," Mr. Erickson said. Mr. Erickson helped Kayla to her bed, and she soon fell asleep. He then set out to find the vagrant himself. He spent the morning scouring through shelters trying to find the man that saved his daughter's life. He eventually found the man volunteering and preparing food for other homeless people. "Hi there. I'm Mr. Erickson," Mr. Erickson said, shaking his hand. "Hi, Mr. Erickson. I'm Rob," the vagrant said. "I'm not sure if you remember me," but Mr. Erickson started before Rob cut in. "Oh, I remember you. I remember you very well, actually. I believe you called me a bum the last time we met, Rob said with a smug grin. How can I help you, Mr. Erickson? Because, as you can see, we're very busy today. Rob concluded, pointing to the long queue of homeless people awaiting their food. Oh yes, I completely understand. I just wanted to firstly apologize for my words and actions yesterday. Secondly, I'd like to thank you for saving my daughter. I'd like to give you this as a token of my appreciation, Mr. Erickson said, handing Rob an envelope. Rob looked into it and saw the stacks of cash in it. He immediately returned it to Mr. Erickson, saying, "No thanks. We're even." "What?" "I don't understand," Mr. Erickson said. "When I saved your daughter's life, I found a sense of purpose and life again. I was going up to the terrace in a moment of deep despair, but then I realized I had to be alive to help others. So, if anything, your daughter saved me," Rob explained. "Wow. Interesting," Mr. Erickson said, deeply considering Rob's words. "All right, but I still want to do something for you to show my appreciation. Would you mind joining me for dinner tonight?" Mr. Erickson asked. Rob agreed and met Mr. Erickson at a restaurant for dinner later that day. Mr. Erickson had an interesting conversation with Ron and learned about his tragic life and tough upbringing. How Rob had finally got a good job and then lost it all. He was particularly amazed by the man's knowledge of plants and flowers. However, Mr. Erickson began to notice how the other people at the restaurant looked at Rob with disgust. So he invited him over to his house for a quick shower and wardrobe change. Rob, now a little more comfortable with Mr. Erickson, agreed. After showering, Mr. Erickson gave Rob one of his old suits. When Kayla finally woke up from a long sleep, she was surprised to see a handsome young man in an elegant suit in their hallway. She finally recognized him as she got a closer glimpse of his eyes. "You're the man from the elevator," she said softly. "What are you doing here?" Kayla asked. "Your dad invited me," Rob replied. "Wow, you look amazing," Kayla said in awe. "Thank you. Can I get you something to drink?" Kayla asked. "Sure," Rob responded with a smile. Kayla and Rob had their first proper conversation over some coffee. Kayla thanked him for saving his life, while Rob explained the crazy way in which she had saved his. Mr. Erickson eventually found them in their rather large house and joined in. "You have such a profound understanding of plants, Rob. Do you think you could do our gardening? I know you have your volunteering, but there are many ways to help people," Mr. Erickson suggested. Rob agreed and started working for them the next day. Rob did such an amazing job that Mr. Erickson later brought him on board his company to work there. Because of Rob's ingenious efforts, the company became more successful. As time progressed, Kayla fell in love with Rob, and they eventually got married. The once arrogant yet lonely rich girl finally realized that money can't buy true love or happiness.